changing the spark plugs on the 2012 Mitsubishi Outlander Sport. It's going to be similar, if not exactly the same, for the same years and the same models of this Outlander from Mitsubishi. First thing that I will be doing is I will disconnect the negative terminal on the battery, and then we will move on to taking off the cap that covers the coils and the spark plugs. It takes a 10mm wrench for the terminal. It takes a 10mm to take off the spark plug cover. It takes a 10mm to also take out for the coils. Now I'm going to try to see if it's possible to pull the coil without disconnecting the connector. If not, I'll just disconnect the connector. Sometimes there's enough slack, sometimes there's not. This is the first time I'm changing spark plugs in this car, so I guess I'll see. So unfortunately, the connectors do have to come off, but they're very easy to take off. You're just basically pressing on this tab and then pulling back away. I've done 3 out of the 4 spark plugs, so this is going to be the last spark plug that I'm going to need to do. You'll also need, I forgot to mention this earlier, but you're going to need a very specific socket for moving spark plugs, and in this case this was a 5/8 for this vehicle. I like buying a kit that has multiple sizes, so then that way if you're working on different cars or different years or what have you, you'll have a wide range of these sockets, and you don't have to keep going to the auto parts store to buy a specific socket every time or whatnot, and it's a little bit more costly typically that way than buying a kit. Other than that, removing the spark plug that's already in the engine, just take it nice and slow as you loosen. Then after you remove it, when you put on the new spark plug, what I like to do is I'll insert into the socket. The socket's going to hold it because of the rubber insert that will hold the socket in place, but then I'll actually take this off the wrench and guide it in, and then just hand tighten it basically until I feel resistance, and then I'll put the socket wrench back on and then just give it like a maybe quarter turn, less than quarter turn, not that much. You don't want to over torque your spark plugs. You don't want something to break or something to seize up, even with anti-seize later on, and it's really difficult to take it out. And if the spark plug breaks or the threads break or something, it's just going to be a much larger and more costly issue to resolve that. As well, talking about anti-seize, be sure to put a little anti-seize on the threads of the spark plug. I usually like to start with just a very little bit, maybe after the first thread of the spark plug, and maybe smear it a little bit across a couple threads, and then I'll put it back in after that. So change out the spark plugs, put the coils back on, plug back in the connectors, put the cap back on, and the 3 bolts after that. They have block washers, so you get them kind of where you start to feel some resistance, and you don't really have to over tighten them after that. Now I'm going to just quickly change the air filter. Since I'm here, it appears that on these models it's as simple as basically just popping these 2, get a little separation. I think the center section is the filter itself. I'll pull that out and then put in the replacement. Okay, so as I thought, after you basically unhinge these from here, you're literally just making a little separation and pulling the filter out. Since this didn't have any arrows or anything, I just tried to make sure that it was going to come out, and I was going to put the new one in the same way. But even so, it seems that it's formed so that it really can only go back on in the one direction, which is good. It's always easier to make it simpler and pretty much idiot-proof. And that's it. That's how easy it is to change the air filter on one of these Outlanders. And the spark plugs, I always appreciate when it's easily accessible. We had a Nissan Murano, it was an 06, and you could easily get to the 3 spark plugs in the front, but you had to jump through all kinds of hoops, and you had to remove a bunch of things to try to get to the other 3 spark plugs in the back. And I pretty much figured after that I would never buy another car that I couldn't easily access kind of the basic maintenance items that you should be able to do on your own.